Hello? Hello?
Podcast Network Asia.
For me, tithe is really more of a heart issue.
Yes.
Because pag iisipin mo, pag binalik natin kay God yung 10%, buti nga hindi 100% eh. Hindi nga 50% eh, di ba? 10%. Kasi it really shows kung saan yung heart natin, kung saan tayo nagtitiwala.
In the Bible, it mentioned that it's possible for people to rob God. Malachi chapter 3 from verse 8, it says, "Will a man rob God, yet you rob me? But you ask, how do we rob you?" And then God answered, "In tithes and offerings." Then verse 9.
Oh, yan. Guys, kinalabutan ako.
Every church, for it to function, it has to be registered in SEC. Okay, so it is not a company but a non-profit corporation. Kung temptation to temptation, ay dali. Kung dali niyan. But this is something that we really need to practice. Kaya kailangan namin kumuha ng external auditor eh. Kailangan may ibang mata.
Do I happen to just have the 3 churches who are doing this properly? Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 114 of the Narrador podcast. Come on in. So happy you could join us, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify, wherever you get your show. My name is Sam O.
Tina Ryan here.
Okay, let's introduce everyone to our lovely friends here on the show. Of course, Instructor Recio is instructor at New Heaven and New Earth, Shincheonji Church of Jesus. Brother JPaul Hernandez is a lay preacher at the feast. And joining us again from Victory, Makati is Pastor Neil Germo. Hi, everybody.
Hi!
Taas ng energy.
Lovely. So we're doing our listener question series. And today's question coming from our listener, I think is something that affects all of us. And especially you guys, because you are in your churches overlooking your members, the running of your church. It has to do with tithes and offerings, okay? I'm assuming with the pandemic, the tithe situation has changed, correct? Because a lot of people have lost their jobs. The financial situation is a lot insecure now. But our listener today, Gabby, actually brings a slightly different angle to the tithing situation. So let's get to our email. It comes through my Instagram, and we have our personal socials here. If you guys want to get in touch, that's one way to do it, at Harold.Recio, at JPaul Hernandez, at the Tina Ryan, and at Neil Germo. If you guys want to message all of us, at I am Samo for me. And this one is from Gabby. Gabby says, "Hi, Ate Sam. I'm Gabby. I just caught up with the recent episodes of the podcast. And to be honest, your podcast helps me deal with my anxiety a lot. It's been my rock to combat anxieties, especially with the ongoing pandemic. I listened to your latest episode yesterday, and Brother Jay made a comment about tithes. I recently started studying the Bible, but I'm still a bit lacking in knowledge about the church life. I was wondering if you could have a discussion about tithes and offerings done in the church and how the churches on the podcast handle tithes and what they are for. I know everything we have is from God and we should really give back all the blessings and glory. But there is uncertainty in my part because I hear a lot about offerings, especially with money, that it doesn't go to the proper places and it just goes to people's pockets. You know, the usual corruption pag nagiging political. So I was wondering what the spirit is with the tithes and offerings. Thank you and God bless you. Can't wait for more episodes." That is coming from Gabby.
Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you, Gabby. Yeah. Can we start with just the practice of tithing? Because I know that this is rooted in the Bible. Like there is something in the Bible about this, right? Where does it all start?
Let me find the ano. Tell me, Insta-Harry, so I can look for it now.
Go Insta-Harry.
Kung sa hari kayo napatanay kitang gumagano si Instahari kanina.
Gumagano na eh.
Hindi kasi, of course, di ba, I've always said before na we are practicing according to the Bible. And Tina, if you want to read Leviticus chapter 27, verse 30. This is at the time of Moses. So Old Testament times pa lang. And to be honest, before I became a born-again Christian, I am not aware about the tithe. The first time I heard about it, I don't even know what it means.
Do you mean you didn't hear the word tithe? Because in the Catholic Church, we don't really call it tithes. Parang we just know there's an offertory portion in the Mass. Yes, and there is a basket or a box that is passed around, and then you drop in whatever you are offering for that day. So do you mean that, yung tithe na term?
Yun na nga. Then I found out that that tithe actually means a tenth of the portion of the blessing that you receive from God. So,
Ito lang.
kumbaga, yon, a tenth. So, pero before kasi what I'm practicing, as in nung una pa lang, any amount that I want to give to God, yun na yung ibibigay ko. Pero ito tithe, it's a 10%.
So, saan
So,
nanggaling yung 10? Kasi nakalagay lang dito sa Leviticus chapter 27 verse 30, a tithe of everything from the land, whether grain from the soil or fruit from the trees, belongs to the Lord. It is holy to the Lord. So, where did the 10% come from?
Yun
Sabi
yung
ni God.
ibinigay. Oo, yun yung sinabi ng Diyos. At
The word
nabasa mo
tithe
dun sa, yeah. Mhm.
means a tenth, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
A tithe means a tenth. And for us, giving our tithes to God is very important because in the verse that Tina read a while ago, this tithe belongs to God and it is holy to God. And that's why as Christians, it's our, if I may say, basic duty to give this to God because of course, God will be expecting us to do this for Him because it is holy for Him. And I actually have a trivia, most likely for Tina, Ryan, and for Sam O, because I'm thinking Pastor Neil
Sa
and
amin,
Brother
hindi
Chris
kami.
will
Hindi kami kasama sa
about
trip.
this.
Hindi kayo kasama.
No,
Hindi kayo kasali dito.
Girls
Sit
only.
You already know about this, but for them, since they're still studying the Bible and all, but basically in the Bible, it mentioned that it's possible for people to rob God.
Yeah.
Saan
Kasi-
yan? It's the Hari. Ano na namang
Sige.
verse yan?
Okay, this has
Malakay
turned
chapter
into a full-on Bible study, I see. Okay,
Malakay.
I'm
sorry.
fine.
Pagka
Yeah.
nakatama ka, may Gcash ka. May makatam ka ng Gcash kay Instahari.
Paki-DM na lang sa aking IG account.
Because we're
But-
robbing God?
Yeah,
You
let
mean
me
if
read.
we don't tithe?
Yes.
Oh, that's not okay. Okay.
Yeah. So Malachi chapter 3 from verse 8, it says, will a man rob God, yet you rob me? But you ask, how do we rob you? And then God answered, in tithes and offerings. Then
Oh my
verse
gosh,
9.
it's so
Oh,
clear.
yan. Guys, kinalabutan ako.
And on verse 9, you are under a curse, the whole nation of you, because you are robbing me. And then on verse 10, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that you will not have room enough for it. Amen. So,
Amen.
nakakatakot siya at first, but when you obey, when you follow, yung promise ng Diyos is that He will give you so much that you won't have enough room for it.
Okay. Tina is like very troubled by this, but then I find Tina's situation a little different because she hasn't been going to a church. She has been kind of searching. She's on the journey right now still. And so please correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, the tithe is when you go to a church, you tithe there. So if you're not part of a church, how does this work? Should she be feeling as bad as she looks right now?
Parang ang dami kong kailangang kwentahin, guys.
Parang ang dami niyang utang kay God or something.
Siguro kami lang, we recommend that she tithe to wherever she is nourished.
Okay.
So for example, she is being nourished by the Bible study by Shinshanji. Mas kaya, tama naman yung pronunciation ko, diba? So I believe she should tithe there.
Okay.
Even if she's not yet part of the church. Yung hindi siya officially moving to NHNE. Wherever you're nourished, doon ka magbigay.
What about the situation of her feeling like, oh my goodness, all the years that I haven't been tithing, what do I do about that?
Well,
Yeah,
depends
is that-
kung may savings ka eh. Joke lang.
I was just gonna say, meron bang Pastor Neil, pwede ba yung back count ka ng utang, diba?
Oh, may ganun ba?
Yeah. So,
May
so,
ganun
Just
ba?
start
so,
now.
so I think it really depends it's between you and God. Kung ano yung, like, based on your faith and your trust in Him. Pero siguro yung basic step is moving forward. Kasi up to you. Depende sa usapan nyo ni Lord kung you want to honor Him and trust Him na, Lord, ito yung mga years na hindi. So be it. It's between you and God. Pero at least for a baby step, if you want to go to that direction, moving forward, like yung mga papasok na income, na revenue, you can start with that. And speaking of tithing kasi, it's si God naman, we acknowledge that He owns everything. Even yung nag-send ng email, alam niya, God owns everything. And for me, tithe is really more of a heart issue.
Yes.
Because pag iisipin mo, pag binalik natin kay God yung 10%, buti nga hindi 100% hindi nga 50% di ba? 10%. Kasi it really shows kung saan yung heart natin, kung saan tayo nagtitiwala. And ako, masasabi ko, because of itong tithing, ito si Lord, kahit sabihin natin, okay, 10% is 10%. And depende yan sa kung magkano yung naging earning mo. Di ba? Nagpa-vary. Some people will say, pang ano ko na yan pang bayad ng Meralco, or pang bayad ng condo, or pang bayad or down payment ng kotse. So, depende yan Pero, for me kasi, I'd rather trust God. Kasi, naniniwala ako, as you honor God, and pinapakita mo kasi na tinatrust mo talaga si Lord. Kasi doon magkakaalaman talaga yung kung saan yung value ng tao, kung saan mo linalagay yung pera mo But because if you give back your money kay Lord, kasi kay Lord naman talaga yun, it shows na, Lord, I trust you. And what's happening is, even in the natural sense na nabawasan ka ng 10% sa budget mo kasi binalik mo kay Lord, time and time again, God has proven this, that my 90% that's left will stretch farther than my 100% than me on my own. Yung 90% ko at kasama ko si Lord at in-honor ko si God stretches farther. So it's really more of a heart issue. It's really between you and the Lord. But I agree, ang iba talaga when you honor God with your finances.
Ay, grabe.
So,
guys, paano kung utang? Kunyari may nagbayad sa akin ng utang. May tithing pa rin ba yun?
Hindi, utang naman, hindi naman income yun It's really your money even before, di ba? So, at least that's how I see it. That's how I see it.
Yes. Well, it becomes technical Pero, I guess, kasi pag si Instaharid dumiretso, you'll be surprised what God asked sa New Testament. Di na tithe.
What does He ask in the New Testament?
The early church gave everything.
Yeah. Instaharid, sabihin mo yung sa widow. Yung ano.
Tsaka Ananias, tsaka Safira, bagsakin mo, Instahari.
Ayoko na baka yung kay Ananias na yung nagloko sila, they did not say yung actual na amount na konal. But anyway, I think I just wanna agree with Pastor Neil when he mentioned that it's actually a heart issue, because this is also written within one of the epistles of Apostle Paul, that we should give with what we have decided in our hearts, not reluctantly or under compulsion, but God loves a cheerful giver. So, ang gugustuhin ng Diyos, we will be giving out from our hearts na we will, because it depends sometimes we say that when we give more, we are being blessed more. And doon papasok na, gusto ko rin sinabi ni Pastor Neil kanina na mas gusto ko na may 90% ako with God rather than I have the 100% with me pero wala sa akin ng Diyos. Because doon din mapapatunayan, where do you put your trust? Is it on the finances that you have, or are you trusting God that He can be with you and will provide everything that you need despite of the, if I may say, nabawasan yung finances mo?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Guys, mayroon pa ako isang legit question. Does it count as tithing kung kunyari you help out a friend?
No.
You know, like financially?
That's charity out of your own generosity.
So, dun papasok sa 90% yun.
Yun sa 90%.
Magbibigay ka sa friend, sa charity. Which we encourage everyone to give kasi you can never outgive God.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think...
Go ahead.
Hindi, kasi parang ang tanong natin is, kasi legit. I really struggled with tithing noong umpisa. As in, like, it's totally legit. Pero kung magkwentuhan tayo ng at least from the three of us or for four of us, pag magkwentuhan tayong tithing, baka abutin tayo ng Sunday sa recording sa ganong kadaming tithing blessings. So I'm just saying na ang ganda ng mga sinabi ng mga brothers ko dito and sister, na you really cannot outgive God. I promise you, you cannot outgive the most generous being. Yun lang yung go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think I just had a question because what Tina asked now made me remember something that I heard. Na using your talent or giving your time to the church. Someone was saying na parang you can tithe that. Does that count? Because for the way I understand it, tithing is really a tenth of your income. So it's money. It's money. Not because mukhang pera ang church, but practically speaking, there are bills to pay when you're running a church. You know, there are physical concerns that we need to take care of. So for me, that's completely fine. But what about things like intangible things? Does that count?
No. Kasi what your money represents. Are you trusting God that He is your provider? Yun talaga yun. Yes, we encourage everyone to serve. You give your time, talent, and treasure. Pero I think si Insta Neil tuloy nagsabi. Si Pastor niya sabi, where
si Insta Neil, pwede rin Insta Neil. Nagme-mentor sa akin si Insta Harry. So, I'm the young Padawan.
Diba parang yun you put you what is important to you, that's where your treasure is. Right. So if yung pinaka-importante sa si God, talagang hindi dapat masakit bumunot. And we're not asking about the amount. What is important is yung nasa Lord, ito yan for example. Ito yung mga usap namin ni Lord. Lord, and this is legit. My last year, Lord, parang di ata natuwa si Instahar.
Hindi nag-agree, bro. Hindi nag-agree. Nag-DC. Silent protest.
I think naghang siya, guys, kasi parang nag-freeze yung frame kanina.
Okay lang.
He'll be back. Okay.
Yeah. I'll be back. For me, like last year, it was really hard. Like, hindi nagbabayad, marami naming financial concern. But then, when I was at Promise ito, April last year, height, ECQ pa nito. And God was telling, nagpipray ako, Lord, really worried. Tas, na yun kami ni Viv, may siniset kaming date within the month kung kailan kami magta-tithe. Parang hinuhol namin. Tapos sabi, yung binulong ni Lord, dagdagan mo, anak. So imagine mo, for ECQ season 1, and God was, just like nag-wrestling kami. And what God, so bigay ako, and then, everything turned out well. And it was not about the money. It was about God asking me, will you trust me in good times and in bad times? And buti na lang nag-trust ako kay Lord. Kasi, God is Father. God is gonna be always providing. So, it's more of that spiritual heart thing na, will you trust God?
Right. Okay, wow. We've done this podcast for like a year, and I mean, we've had all kinds of things happen, but I think this is a first. Like, Insta Harry, where he is, I think you guys are experiencing thunder, lightning, rain.
Dumating si Thor Oo.
Perhaps.
Kala ko nasa heaven na si Instahari puti Hello naman.
Rumblings and peals of thunder, just like what is in heaven.
May sound of judgment.
And now he lost internet and he had to switch to his phone. Thank you for your commitment and coming back to join us, Instahari. Okay, all right. Guys, can I ask, because Gabby says tithes and offerings, right? What is the difference between tithe and offering? Iba ba yun?
Go Instahari na. Gumagano na siya sa mic. Go, bro. Go.
Basically, the way we understand it, the offering is on top of what you're giving as a tithe to God. So from your own, you decide on how much you will give, and then you will give it more than what you have given as your tithe. That's the way we understand it. I'm not sure with Brother Ray and Pastor Neil.
So like yung offering sa church, guys, Brother JPaul, iba pa yon. Like, or can I like say, can I tithe there?
Yeah, hindi naman, wala namang tithe, walang tithe audit, walang tithe police na, Tina, bakit dito ka walang ganon. It's more of really a spiritual thing. So, yeah, for me, minsan, kunyari, umattend ako ng service ng ganitong church, mag-offer ako. As yung ganon. Offer, one time lang, ganon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yun.
So the tithe it's a bit more technical. It's a tenth of your income. The offering is anything that you want to give on top of that.
Yeah.
Regardless of time, just out of the generosity of your heart, if you want to make a donation or something. Okay.
Yeah. And alam ko, balita ko nga sa Victory Makati, isang tithe lang doon ni Pastor Neil, tapos lahat na eh. Grabe, ganun kalaki tithe niya.
We're good.
1 year operations. Pasok.
Yeah.
Covered lahat ng church expenses.
Sana. Alam mo naman tayo, combined salaries natin, total na yun, tithe lang ni Sam yun eh.
Yun, tama ka doon.
Hosting fee ni Sam.
Si Sam ang pumupondo ng Vatican. Ganun katindi.
Grabe siya.
Special seat na nga sa Vatican yata si Sam eh. Oy, our big donor.
That actually brings me to something that Gabby asks in her message. She's curious about the processes of the churches here.
Sana pupunta.
I mean, in my experience kasi, again, as a Catholic, you're right. I think the practice is more like you go to Mass, there is an offertory that's about to happen at some point. A basket or a box is passed around, and then you put in whatever amount. This tithing concept, it kind of took me a while to get smart to that and actually follow it. But and this is a question that I had as well, as Gabby says, I did not know what exactly it paid for, where it went. I remember even thinking at some point na parang, you know what, Sam, you shouldn't even worry about that. Like, of course, God's going to be on top of it. He's going to make sure that it goes to somewhere that the money is needed. So just entrust it to him. But is there, like on the church's part, is there some kind of process where, you know, you guys are kind of on top of seeing like where the money goes?
May accounting naman na nagaganap, di ba, guys?
May ganun ba?
So, at least what I can speak of is Victory, like finances, really, at most, yung level of yung pag-audit, yung as in like talaga we treat it seriously kasi it is God's money eh. So we are being entrusted by God kasi ito yung sa local church for the expenses and all, pero in terms of at least what I can speak of is a Victory is ano talaga super high regard yun sa finances, like may mga third party auditors pa talaga nagche-check, so very strict yung liquidation. Tapos yung mga resibo, may mga pangalan, dapat legit na OR, mga sales invoice, yung mga as in like third-party auditor. Mas
kinukuha ba kayo, Pastor Neil?
Sorry?
Kinukuha ba ang mga church?
Sa government yun eh.
Government yun.
Hindi, pero, sino yung COA nyo?
Hindi, what we do kasi, wala naman COA, pero kasi sa Victory in itself, grabe yung strict standard for finances. That's why we are tapping third-party auditor. Sabi nga ng isang auditor friend ko na like sa mga companies, di ba, may mga nag-audit ng mga expenses. Pero pagka client daw si Victory, parang mas grabe yung level of strictness. And then,
Yep.
So, kasi God's money yun eh. So, ganun. At least,
that's good what I know. Yeah. Brother Jay?
Yeah, ganda nung ano. Yeah, it is very similar kay La Pastor Neil. You see, for us, I think very much more on, technical side. Kasi ako yung nagmamanage nito sa amin eh. So talagang kabisat, So, every church, for it to function, it has to be registered in SEC. Okay, so it is not a company, but a non-profit corporation. Why? Kasi you have to we have to follow the law of the land, yung ganyan. So we follow that, tapos our finances a feast, may internal audit, may external third party audit. Tapos di meron pa kaming regional. May regional audit pa yan. So talagang grabe ang auditing namin. Kasi nga, ang dali, I promise you. Kung temptation sa temptation, ay ang dali. Ang dali niyan. But this is something that we really need to practice. Kaya kailangan namin kumuha na external auditor eh. Kailangan may ibang mata na who will do their due diligence, who will practice the law of the law, the accounting law. So yun. So we do that, and it's really intense. And more than anything, I do not know how I personally will face God if ninakawan ko siya.
Mm-hmm.
But by not tithing, we're already robbing him. Sabi nga ni Instare.
Well, but I mean, yun nga, like, diba, we talked about it naman, like within, like Pastor Neil told you, it's what's important is moving forward. Like, what are you gonna do? You know? Would it be funny if
it's not me who said it, it's the Bible. Hindi naman ako yun na gano'n.
Sorry naman.
Let's shoot the messenger.
So, wow, guys, this is like surprising to me. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure what I was expecting. But this is really comforting that you guys are like super on top of this. And wouldn't it be funny if we go to Insta-Harry and he's like, ay, wala kaming ganyan. Wala kaming ganyan.
Hey, grabe.
What about you guys? Ganun din ba?
Yes, for us, the tithes and offerings, these belong to God. These are the money that the members gave to the church, and it must be spent for God's work. It must be spent for the works that is being done in the church. And for us, una, importante yung audit, just like what they mentioned, because we are so big in the transparency na what we do kasi when the member is giving the tithes and offering, it is actually recorded. They report it and we record it. And we are so open that if a member would want to check, wait, yung binigay ko, talaga bang na-record dyan? Yes, they can actually ask from our finance ministry. And then they will show them and even be open in knowing about what where their money went. And yun, I think it's natural na may audit sa mga churches, and we also have that in our church, because I think ang pinaka-importante dito is that we are not only transparent to God, but we're also transparent to the people of God. Kasi nga, pag naging yung sinabi nga nung listener natin, kapag nagiging political na siya, baka kung saan na napupunta. But for us, we really have to give importance in making sure that every cent in the church of God must be spent for God's work. Yeah.
And tsaka I think yung if she's whatever church that she's gonna go to, they always report it if proper. Kung sa parish siya nakapaskil sa likod, kung Catholic siya, kung yung traditional Catholic siya, pero whatever church or sa proper community yan, maybe not the whole detail kasi talagang buong isipin mo parang isang Excel sheet yan, ang hirap nun intindihan, pero the church would always provide something, or then you can ask the pastor or the leader kasi they would share it. So kami we share it. And for example, Sam, may friend ka, Sam, na yung ganito lang, Sam, kwento ko. May nagbigay sa akin ng pera. Sabi ko, hindi ko pwede tanggapin to, ganyan. Tapos, hindi, tanggapin mo na, Brother J, tanggapin mo na, Brother J. Tapos parang ganyan. Tapos, sabi ko, tapos that night, nag-email talaga ako, kailangan ko documents, sinend ko sa finance. Tapos tong girl na to, bakit mo pa kailangan niya na hindi to be anonymous? Hindi, kasi I need to account kasi I'm actually not allowed to receive money. So parang medyo nag-semi-panic ako kasi ganyan. Kasi ako yung nagdi-disburse ng pera. So isipin mo lang, ako nag-receive, tapos ako rin nagdi-disburse. That is, in audit terms, a big area of problem yan. So yun lang. So, remember that person, Sam.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. What's this? Yes, it was me. Okay. Okay, fine. So this is very comforting. Like, I love this. I did not know na parang ganitong level palang strictness yung how you guys take care of the tithe money and make sure that you guys are all transparent. This is great.
So everything accounted for.
Yeah.
Pala.
But
Hopefully
my
lahat ng
question-
church. Hopefully
Yun
lahat
na
ng
nga eh.
church.
That's my question. So do I happen to just have the 3 churches who are doing this properly? Or is this the general practice out there? Because you can certainly understand why this is a concern, because you hear sometimes of like, oh, this pastor or this priest like mishandling funds and there's a scandal and all those things, right? But so am I lucky to have the 3 churches that are doing it right? How widely practiced is this?
They can't speak for other churches.
Yun nga eh.
Because
the religious community chismis is what?
Ako, like, hindi kasi ako machismis din. Pero I can't really speak sa kanila. What I can say is really the practice of victory, that it's really with the highest regard of integrity. So, hindi ko alam eh. Pero, di ba, we hear some news na baka may ganun. So, hindi ako sure. So, yeah.
Gosh, ang mga kapal ng mukha naman ng mga nagnanakaw na sa church.
I'm just so proud. I'm just so proud. Like, this is the gold standard right here, guys. We have to
I won't be,
them.
There are people in ministry that have taken money. And it was one of the most painful meetings I had to do. So, you have to deal with it. Oo, talaga. Sakit talaga. Medyo semi-friendship over. Hindi naman friendship, pero gets mo, masakit talaga. We churches have to do it. And if you're part of a church that, you don't need to get SGV or, KPMG, but try to get an external auditor. Bayad kayo ng accountant tsaka auditor kasi it protects you and your church, your integrity. Matarnish lang yan, ang hirap na.
Okay.
Kahit wala kang sin,
wow.
yung ganun.
Yeah. No, this is fantastic. I'm so happy to hear this. Gabby, if you're looking for a church where this is not going to be a concern, where you can be sure that your money, your tithe, your offering will go to where it needs to go, I think right here, you're looking at a good choice of a church just within this podcast. Anything you guys want to add to wrap this? Maybe in the aspect of tithing, especially during this time when our mentality can be more like, I need to hold on to what I have. This isn't the time to share. But I think, everyone kind of touched on how actually during a time like that, it's probably, a call for us to share what we have. What do you guys want to add? I'm sorry, do you want to say?
May legit question ako, guys. Kunyari, di ba, seeking ako ngayon. Pwede bang kunyari gusto ko mag-tithe sa Victory this month. Tapos, magta-tithe ako sa the fees. Ano ba yun? Hindi naman siguro kasalanan yun, di ba? Kasi I'm tithing naman. Di ba? Instahari. sabi nga sa Bible.
How's that?
Hindi, parang kagaya ng sinabi ni Brother J kanina, you give where you are being nourished. So, I think that's a good basis on where you are going to give.
Yeah.
Oh, the Narrador podcast is nourishing me. Nuts.
The Church of Sam O.
The Church of Sam O.
Oh my gosh. Yikes. Yikes, guys. Yikes.
Siguro last na lang, since we're talking about tithes and offering and we are in the midst of the pandemic right now, if you are that kind of person na, Lord, wala talaga akong kayang ibigay, wala akong sweldo, I cannot give you any monetary amount to the church, but I have my skills, I have my time. Will you accept this? And I think God will not turn that down if that's what you can offer Him. But again, God is looking in our hearts. He seeks what is in our hearts. So if that's what you can give, then give it. Because even But the Bible is telling us that we make ourselves as a living sacrifice to God. So to up to what point can we give to God? What can we do for His church to propagate or to nourish? And I think really it's also an issue of what's in your heart. How much do you want to give to God, whether it's money or whether it's your skill, your time? God can see your heart.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Pastor Neil also
Yeah.
emphasized that earlier. This is really a hard thing.
Yeah,
Go
heart
ahead.
issue. Yeah.
Mhm.
And siguro dagdag lang more, account sa Bible regarding tithing. If Tina, if you want to research this, you can check it in Genesis 14:20. So this was the time where si Abraham, kilala niyo naman natin si Abraham, di ba? The father of many nations. So just story time lang guys, story time lang.
Story
What happened
time. All
story
right.
time
time.
yung kay Abraham. So he went off to war sa king of Elam. And then nanalo siya. And then while going back, kasi during the time, when you win wars, meron kang loots, may nakukuha ka, right? From na nakalaban mo. Tapos, nung pabalik na si Abraham from that victory sa King of Elam, may na-meet siyang enigmatic character, which is si Melchizedek. So, priest siya, and then itong si Melchizedek, it is a theophany. So, medyo technical word. So, theophany is a visible manifestation of the Lord during the Old Testament times. So, itong si Abraham, yung na-meet nito si Melchizedek, what Abraham did, inoffer niya yung 10th of what he got. Kasi in-acknowledge niya na si Lord ang nagbigay ng victory sa kanya. Ang kapanalaho, kaya siya nanalo sa victory. That's why yung na-meet nito.
Victory na nun.
Oo, victory. So, hindi victory church, pero yung victory ng nanalo, to clarify, baka sabihin nila, nagsimula sa church namin. So, Genesis 14:20 yun. So, na-meet niya, tapos in-acknowledge ni Abraham na the reason why I have this victory, yung nanalo ako sa war because of the Lord. Then, as a response to that, Abraham gave his death. And if you will parallel it with us, whatever we have, whatever money na pumapasok, it all came from God. And as a response to that, we are giving back the 10%. As a response na, Lord, I trust you in this. So, ganun yung nangyari. Kasi, totoo naman kay God naman galing lahat Pero although you can reason, hindi ako naman nagpagod, ako yung nagpuyat, ako yung nag-grind, ako yung talagang naghirap dito. In a sense, yes. Pero si God naman nag-sustain. Si God nagbigay ng wisdom, ng strength, ng good health. Kasi kung wala yun, di rin naman natin magagawa yun.
Yes.
So, it really boils down on how you see God as the ultimate source. Sa kanya galing lahat. And it's really a faith issue and a trust issue na, Lord, ibibigay ko to, ibabalik ko sa iyo yung 10% because I know that as I honor you with my finances, I give back what is really due to you. Etong 90% ko, it will really stretch farther and further than me just doing it on my own. And just to lang rin, kasi baka to the people who are also watching in this podcast na, kailangan pa na mag-tithe, mabibless ako doon. Like in a way, oo. Pero kasi, yung motive kasi is when we give back our tithe, it's not twisting God's arm. Oh, Lord, nagbigay ako ng 10% ko. I-bless mo na ako, Lord, yung business, dapat transaction complete, okay na to. Lord, yung ayuda dumating. Hindi ganun yun It's just you responding na, Lord, regardless yung blessings na hinihintay ko hindi bumalik, but I trust you that ibibigay ko what is really due to you. So, and really it depends on your relationship with God and faith. Na, Lord, kahit crisis pa, Lord, alam ko sa'yo kasi ito ibabalik ko sa'yo ito. And yun naman si Lord di ba? Nakikita niya yung heart natin. Sinabi rin sa Bible in Luke 16, I think, sabi, di ba? If you can be entrusted with small things, you can be entrusted with bigger things. That's why, naalala ko, even, siguro when I was young, siguro nung college ako, sabi ko, yung dream ko, Lord, okay lang na mag-tithe ako ng 5 million a month. Parang sweldo lang ni Sam na pumapasok monthly. So sabi ko,
Tama.
Can confirm. Okay.
Actually, kulang pa nga yun Sam, sorry. Medyo minalit ko pa. Diba? Yung 5 million a month type. Diba? So what I'm saying is, I don't mind giving that much tithe if you will see it na ang laki. Kasi, kung nagbibigay ako ng tithe ng 5 million a month, it means meron akong 50 million na pumapasok. So I'd rather be in faith na, Lord, okay lang, bigay ako ng malaki kasi alam ko it's just really the 90% of everything. Mas malaki talaga in total. So again, yung tithing, sinabi rin ni Lord dun sa scripture, ang dami kong sinabi, no? Yung sinabi dito, test me in this. So yun lang sa part ng sa scripture na sinabi, i-test nyo si Lord and He will throw open the floodgates of heaven sa tithing.
Wow.
So,
Isn't that powerful? Oh my goodness. Yes. Brother G.
So, na-realize ko lang today na bawal pala akong mangutang para mag-tithe para ma-bless ni Lord, no? Parang ganun. Kasi yung naisip kong gawin eh. Joke lang. So, there was a story in the Bible na si Saint Paul was raising funds, building churches. And there was something na nagka-emergency, may calamity sa Macedonia. Tapos sabi niya, guys, wag na kayong mag-donate sa church building program ko kasi nagre-raise siya ng funds to start another church. And nagulat si Saint Paul kasi sobrang laki ng binigay ng Macedonia even if they were suffering. Pinagalitan niya yung church in Ephesus kasi the church in Ephesus was a rich church. Mayaman yan, parang consider it like Makati. Or may pera yung simbahan, yung church dyan, yung city na yan. Tapos sila yung halos walang binigay. Nagalit sila kasi parang grabe kayo. Pinagalitan ni Saint Paul. Imagine mo Saint Paul laging mainitin ulo, diba? Pero pinagalitan niya because that is one way of stealing from God. Why? Because you give so that the allocation of the goods can be given. Remember, we are God's hands and feet here. We're building the kingdom of heaven on earth. So when you give, you are giving to God, but then the church is able to move forward because of the giving. So I encourage you to give, and I promise you, you will never outgive God. And with the generosity of God, ay grabe. Imagine mo na lang to. The fact you're breathing, the fact that you have intelligence, the fact that you have talent, the fact that you are alive, that's already God's generosity. And God is only asking 10% when He owns everything. Because God wants your heart.
Never thought of it that way, guys.
That thing that you give to God creates a space for God to fill you up. So give, and it will come back to you. Good measure. Anyway, kakanta sana ako, but yun lang. Nagtaas ng kamay si Insta-H.
I know, that's what he did, right? Insta Harry?
Yes. I just want to add, lastly na talaga, because maybe some of our listeners will be thinking, may tithes na nga, bakit may offering pa? Because we can find the same thing that the Israelites did at the time of Moses, wherein they are going to build the temple of God. And then instead of just using the tithes, what they actually did is that God spoke through Moses to the Israelites that they would need to give contribution for God. So that's the time na nagbigay sila ng mga gold, mga silver, mga frankincense, and everything that is needed to establish God's church or God's tabernacle during that time. So parang maybe if you're asking, bakit kailangan ko pang magbigay pa? Because God's work is so big. We are trying to reach out to more people. We are trying to share the gospel to them. And that's why if this is really a question about like yung saan na pupunta yung money ko, good thing na, merong mga churches that they are doing their audit and they're giving importance on how clearly and wisely they are spending the money for God's work. Because in the Bible, alam natin that the love of money is the root of all evil. At ayaw nating matulad sa characters in the Bible that they forsake God or even Jesus. Alam natin story ni Judas for 30 pieces of silver. Na the workers in the church, if I may say generally, they really know how important it is to use God's money to do God's work. And that's why as church leaders, we always remind ourselves to also be transparent and also be wise in everything that we do in God's work.
Ganda.
Okay. Wow. All right. This has been so comforting, guys. And I'm so happy to hear that this is how our churches on the podcast operate. I'm sure that will help Gabby also as she thinks through this issue. And yes, tithing, as all our friends here said, I mean, I just find it so funny na parang as we are giving, we have all these thoughts in our heads na parang, oh God ha, ito ha, nagbigay ako ha, or I have to give kasi. Parang we think like God sees all of it. All of it. We can't hide things from God. So, but again, that's not a place that we can get to overnight, I think. And that's okay. But yeah, I have nothing else to add to what everyone said here. So
Gab, you should
Yes.
start
Huwag ka mangutang
tithing.
para mag-tithe.
Tithe ka
Yeah,
na,
isa pa
Gab.
yan.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you. And thank you also, Gabby, for messaging us and for listening to our show. If you guys want to email us, the narrowdoorpodcast@gmail.com. Please check out everyone in their individual endeavors as well. There are podcasts here, YouTube channels, Bible studies, all the details in the show description. We'll see you next time. Bye.